Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to do a bit of a review of this Brass Goat brass catcher. This attaches to the magazine well because it's pretty great. I've been using it for a few months now after I got a comment about it, so a huge thank you to the person who commented that because I would not have even known about these otherwise. But yeah, they're pretty great. But there are a few things about them that I wanted to mention that will change how you can use the rifle a little bit. So let me get into that here. Getting started with just the basics of this brass goat itself though, this attaches to your lower, and it'll attach to any mil-spec lower. The way it works is, so you can see here, it kind of has a L or a J sort of shape if you want to say that, and you just take the front right here and just put it onto your lower here and you just push it in. And I kind of demonstrated this already in the introduction, but I wanted to take a bit more time to show it a bit more in depth, you know. And then just right here at the back, you just got to click this in as well. And I don't know if you could hear that on the camera or on the microphone, but it is all in now, and you can see it's not going anywhere. So this is kind of a two-piece system. You have the mount itself, which is what I just showed. That's what it actually attaches to the magazine well. And then you also have this gray looking sort of like a fatter magazine. They make other colors as well, FDE and black, I believe, if I remember right. But the way this works is you can see there's this little, what looks like a button here. You just depress that and this whole thing will come right out. Of course, it's easier if you're doing it like normal and not on a camera. There we go. And it'll just slide right out. You can see it's just held in there like so. Just another piece of polymer there. And then to get it back in, you just push it in, and you'll hear it click, and there we're good. This brass catcher works even if you do have a dust cover, which you can see mine's kind of a brighter green at the moment because I'm in the process of making my whole rifle green, but haven't got there yet. But yeah, if you noticed earlier, I had it closed, but if I rack the charging handle... And one more thing, since I am using a side charging upper myself, I do want to mention, of course, this will work if you have a side charger that's on the other side, but if you do have a reciprocating charging handle that's on the same side as where it ejects, then it will not fit because it just jam up the gun then. You aren't really going to be able to see it too well on the camera, I don't think, but at any rate, yeah, the dust cover, it doesn't interfere with the brass catcher at all. And as I said, I have used this for some months now and I haven't had no issues whatsoever with malfunctions, which is great. And when you're firing and actually using this brass catcher, this does fit, I believe it's 30 5.56 or 223 cases. However, I have tested this with a friend of mine's 6.5 Grendel and it also works on there perfectly fine. And it probably wouldn't fit as many cases, and you know, I don't exactly remember if it was 30 on their website that it fits, but you know, if you just empty this out after every mag, then you're probably good to go. And I don't know if that'll exactly be the case with those other rounds like 6.5, but just something to keep in mind. It does work with all of those. Now on that note, while I was mentioning that 6.5 Grendel, that friend of mine who owns that does a lot of bench shooting, and one thing that we noticed when we were shooting at a bit off the bench is that this is too fat, having both your mag and this over here. Doesn't want to fit very well on the bench, so that is something to keep in mind. However, if that is the case and you're using this in a bench, you can still use this as a deflector just so all your brass kind of goes in the same place, and it works well for that too. But the whole system won't work, at least in most benches that I'm aware of. Of course, you can probably find some of them that will fit. And as I mentioned a bit earlier already, I haven't had any issues with this causing any malfunctions. I have with a lot of other brass catchers that I've used. But yeah, I haven't had any malfunctions caused by this brass catcher on either the 6.5 or on this one, which is just in 5.56. So, very reliable thus far. And the other type of brass catcher I've used and that I keep bringing up in the past is just this type that attaches with velcro to your handguard, just up here in the front. Just like so, and then it would just kind of hang there. It doesn't work very great. On the few occasions I have actually gotten this to work, it normally only works for a few rounds, and then normally a round will just, or just the recoil, you know, it'll just kind of push it down, and then it's either going to cause a malfunction, or what seems to happen even more often when I have issues with this type of brass catcher is it just hangs down so much that it ends up not catching any brass anyway, and it's just hanging there unnecessarily. So as for a few concerns, and these haven't actually caused an issue yet, but there's something I'm a bit worried about going forward. We'll have to see if they actually cause an issue. The first of which is this whole brass catcher, both parts of it, everything here is polymer. The way it hooks on is just kind of tension, you know. Well, I shouldn't say that necessarily tension, but you know, the polymer on this brass catcher does need to kind of open up when it is initially pushing on to hook onto the mag wall, and I'm a bit concerned that it might crack like around this area here. We'll have to see. As I said, I've had this for a few months since or a bit after I got that comment. I picked one of these up, and yeah, it's been running fine so far. Haven't noticed any damage whatsoever, so we'll see if it continues to work out well. That'll be something I'll pay particularly close attention to. And then the other part that I think might be an issue, it's not something I'm going to be able to test just yet, but it's something in the future I'm thinking of getting, is a ambidextrous bolt release, one of those PDQs. And looking at how this attaches, I think it might cover that and potentially not even attach right. We'll see. I don't know yet. I don't have a way to test that, but I think it'll be pretty useful to have for ergonomics, so we'll see if this has an issue with it eventually, because I will be getting one of those. Another point that I guess you could say is a little bit of a concern, I don't really care too much about the finish, but it is something I'm sure a lot of you probably do care about. A lot of people care about. They don't want to scratch up their rifle's finish. So, you know, especially with how this attaches, you might think like, well, could this potentially rub off some of the finish? And it could, possibly. I haven't had any issue with it so far, and I've used this on both my rifle here, which is just a standard anodized black finish, and I've also used it on that 6.5 Grendel, which has an FEE Cerakote, both of which have not shown any signs of wear thus far. If you are particularly concerned with having finish wear, if I remember right, I believe the manufacturers themselves said that you can avoid it by lubricating that area, or using some grease would also probably work. But another thing I was thinking is you could just put something under it, like some tape, some painter's tape, for instance, or like a cloth, you know, something just small, low profile. But I don't think it's necessary personally. I really haven't seen any finish wear on mine whatsoever, so I don't think it would be an issue. And granted, I haven't used it that much on that other 6.5 rifle, though I've used it quite a bit on this. So there's something to keep in mind there. Anyway, so that was a potential issue. Now for an actual issue I've noticed with this is, so if you'll notice here, I am using a extended magazine release, and the reason for that is not that I have an issue reaching the standard magazine release. In fact, I've never had an issue reaching it. I have larger hands, so I can reach it totally normally. However, when I have this brass coat on here, you can see. So you can see here I'm using this is an Armaspec extended magazine release. And where the normal magazine release would be about where these two screws are right here. But it kind of is getting a little bit blocked by this brass coat. So it can make reloads a little bit annoying, which, you know, I was able to fix that just by getting this extended magazine release. That way when I am using this, I can just push back here on the extended magazine release and it'll just pop the mag. All good to go. Another issue with this brass catcher is it can make reloads in general a bit harder. So, as I've already mentioned, I do have a bit of an issue getting the magazine release pressed. Another issue can also be when you're just putting in mags. So, if you can see how low, or actually let me put that mag back in for just a sec. So, if you can see here, this magazine, this is just a 30 round Lancer mag, it does sit a little bit below the brass coat, so it's easy to hit in and all of that, but it is partially blocked, you can see here, by it. I don't have a huge amount of space to work with because this is here. So it can make your reloads a little more awkward sometimes. Not too bad if you're using a 30 or a larger mag. On this note, I'm mostly referring to 40 or 45 round magazines that just stick down a little bit further, but of course your quad stacked or your drum magazines would not fit here because they would just, you know, there's no clearance for it. They wouldn't fit together. But especially if you're using a smaller mag, like a 20. This is just a 20 round PMag here. You can see then it gets quite a bit harder to actually push in. You kind of got to go from the side at this point. And I get that, you know, I feel like, I don't know, someone's probably going to say like you're not going to be using a brass catcher when you are seriously worrying about how fast you can reload anyway, but I like to pick up all my brass when I'm at the range or whatever. So I do have this on quite a bit of the time, so it you know, it does get in the way a bit, but I get it, you know, it's not the biggest issue in the world, because, yeah. So yeah, overall, that covers all the issues I've had with this brass goat. Despite those issues, you know, I still think this is a really, really good brass catcher. It's definitely the best brass catcher that I have been able to use, you know, at least for ARs. I'm trying to find some better ones out there for AKs, but this is great.